Hey folks, welcome back to the Edupedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. And today again, we are going to continue with the Professional Ethics by the Chartered Accountant Act 1949. Right? So, in the previous lecture, we have already completed the clause number 7. Right? Clause 7 of the part 1 of the first schedule. So, today we get a chance to start a fresh new topic, that is, a fresh new clause. Right? So as per the serial number, we head on to clause number 8 from the first part 1 from the first schedule of section 22 of the CA Act 1949. Right? So what was section clause 6 and clause 7 all about? Clause 6 that we dealt in detail was about soliciting clients, and clause 7 was about the advertisement. Right? That advertisement is prohibited in our profession. Now clause 8 goes to the next step. Right? This is apart from the soliciting and advertisement and stuff. This comes down to your profession. This comes down to your action regarding the acceptance of the client and what you do. Right? So if you read clause 8, the text goes as under. A chartered accountant in practice is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he accepts a position as auditor previously held by another chartered accountant or a certified auditor who has been issued certificate under the restricted certificate rule 1932 without first communicating with him in writing. So the only thing or the crux one-liner that you need to understand in clause 8 is that when you take up an audit, you are supposed to communicate with the predecessor auditor. Right? And when we say predecessor auditor, right, mark the word auditor. We are not talking about the predecessor chartered accountant or the predecessor member. Now why we say auditor is that he is not compulsorily needed to be a chartered accountant. He can be a certified auditor also, right, for whom the certificate is issued under the restricted certificate rule 1932. Right? This is not very important for you as per the clause, because if you are specified in the examination, you will be specified with this term issued certificate under the restricted certificate rule 1932 or the term certified auditor. Right? So wherever it is certified auditor, understand he has the right to audit. Right? So the crux of clause 8 is again gonna be that when you accept a new client, you have to communicate with the predecessor auditor. That is it. But remember, this communication is not to be forwarded after you have accepted the audit. It has to be forwarded before acceptance of the client. Right? So now let us understand what this clause actually has to say in the background and what is the reason behind having such a clause in our professional ethics. Now let us first understand why is this requirement brought up. So first of all, okay, I understand it is a professional courtesy that yes, if Mr. A was an auditor to XYZ Limited, right, and this year due to some reason XYZ has decided to shift its auditor, right, to change the auditor from Mr. A to Mr. B. Now Mr. B and Mr. A both are the auditors. That means both of them are in the same profession, and hence when Mr. A goes and Mr. B takes his place, it is out of professional courtesy that Mr. B should ask Mr. A, right, that Mr. B should keep Mr. A informed that yes, I am taking over your position. Is everything fine over here? Right? That is a general professional courtesy. But just because of professional courtesy, this should not be included in professional ethics. Right? That is not ethics that you have to. Yeah, out of courtesy you do it, that is a separate thing. But what brings it into the chapter of professional ethics is again to understand. Right? You know what happens when you communicate with the predecessor auditor? That communication is actually an opportunity for you to know the reason of the change, right, so that it is on you or on the incoming auditor to safeguard his own interest, right? Because if he knows the reason and if he understands that there's something wrong and that is why he is being bought in, then he should be careful about it, right? So it is first of all to safeguard his own interest, right? And then the interest of the public in general. Maybe the client wanted the previous auditor to work on something, to do something, or the previous auditor was going forward to issue a qualified report, and so he was removed. So he also has to see the interest of the public in general, right? And also the independent of the existing accountant. These are the things which he actually gets. This is an opportunity that exposes the incoming auditor to these problems, right? It is merely drafted or designed in a manner so that it is easy for the incoming auditor to find out if there is any professional or other reason why he should not be accepting the appointment, right? It is not to create a hindrance in the change, that okay, we should be restricting the change, a lot of change or a lot of attrition is not good for the profession, and so we'll put a barrier. No, that is not the intention of the institute. That is why the concept of rotation has come in, that every 5 years you change your auditor, every 10 years you change your auditors, and those things, right? If you read law. So institute does not obstruct the change, but when there is a change, there is a reason behind it, right? So this procedure will actually help the incoming auditor to understand the reason more effectively, more clearly, and to safeguard his own interest and the interest of the public, right? And find out what is the professional or the personal reason behind the change. That is the basic intention behind this entire clause. Now, when we say that the auditor gets an exposure and gets to understand the reason for change, now even we need to understand what could be the various reasons for change, and those reasons can be professional, can not be professional as well, right? Like if we talk about reasons of change, it can be due to the change in the location of the firm, location of the company, that initially the company's head office used to be located in Mumbai. Now they are relocating to Delhi, right? And that company used to get their company audited by a local firm in Mumbai. Now, do you think it is feasible for the auditor to travel from Mumbai to Delhi all very frequent for all the needs and all the references or all the suggestions that is needed by the company? Can that CA from there work so efficiently, being in the capital of the country now? It is difficult, right? So in that case, if the company is shifting its location, it may go on for any other local auditor, because over here also Delhi is not a bad place, or Delhi is not a place with scarcity of CA. The ICAI, Institute of Chartered Accountants, the headquarters is in Delhi, right? You have lots of CA around. So that can be one reason of change, right? Other reason is that the partner who used to take care of the client, for example, every firm, CA firm, has various partners, right? So one of the partner was actually related to the client. When I say related, does not mean related party. Means he had some relation, he had built up that client, he had built up the rapport. So the client actually did not come to the firm, the client has come to that partner, and now that partner dies, and maybe the client is not interested in any other partner of the firm. Second priority would be some other chartered accountant in some other firm. So in that situation, if this partner retires or dies, the client changes its auditors, right? Other reasons can also be that the temperaments clash, that they are dissatisfied, whatever it could be, right? There can be n number of reasons why the client, right, the company changes the auditor, okay? Because every company has that inherent right to choose the accountant. From whom do they want their accounts to be accounted, and from whom is it supposed to be audited? They have a freedom of choice for that. right? So if at any point of time they're not liking any auditor, they can change him, get someone else appointed. Some tasks will be redone, reperformed, but that's okay. If they're not satisfied, they're not satisfied. Clear? At some other times, there are also some reasons like the fees not being paid, right? That is the root cause of why there is a dispute, right? So you must have encountered such a situation. If you did not, I did. I would share that example. So what happened is, when I went for a client, it was a manufacturing client, right? And I was in one of the big four. When I reached the client and we were discussing with it, right? So we came to know, like I came to know that what happened initially before the start of the client is that the previous auditors for that client was also a big four, right? And their fees have been pending. Now the reason for the pendency of that fees was not any dispute, but the mere cause that the auditors did not raise their bill. They did not ask for the fees. Now, come on, imagine they came here, they made the audit, they have done the entire audit, they have issued the report, but they never asked for the fees. So if the auditor does not ask for the fees, do you think the client is very interested to pay off the fees? Obviously, no. He saves a lot of money on that, right? But before we took over the client, when the auditors were changed and we were appointed the auditor, we made sure that the amount is being paid to the predecessor auditor. So without that amount having been paid and settled in totality to that previous auditor, we did not take up the client. Right? Although if it's the other big four, it's our competitor, right? So we would not generally want it, but that is our professionalism. That is what being a true chartered accountant is. Right? So that was the case that suddenly struck my mind and I wanted to share. So generally that happens, right? But not paying the audit fees, or there's a dispute in the audit fees, that does not actually amount to any professional reason, right? Any professional reason on account of which the audit should not be accepted. So this is not a basic reason, right? But as a matter of practice, the incoming auditor should, in appropriate circumstance, use his influence in order to get the fees settled. He should use his influence in favor of the predecessor auditor so that their fees are settled. Right? There also has been a practice, like in my case, like in our example that I have just taken, that the members do not accept the appointment in circumstance when the bills are not paid or when the fees is not paid. They make sure that settle it. Whether you need to pay, don't need to pay, have that settled at least if you're not paying it off. If they say, yeah, you need to pay, then pay it off. If it is settled without payment, it's okay with me. But at least settle. Right? We do not need things hanging around. So that is a general practice. So there are a lot of chartered accountants who do not accept the audit unless and until the predecessor auditor has been fairly treated. Right? But obviously there is no rule to that effect. And the decision in this regard always rests with the good sense of the member itself. Right? There is no rule for that. It is just that, yeah, we had to communicate with the predecessor auditor, we made the communication. Neither they told us, nor were we informed that the fees is not paid. But somehow we came to know from the client itself that the fees was not paid. And hence, we influenced the client. And it is not basically an influence. We told them openly that if you don't pay off the fees, we are not accepting your client. We are not accepting the audit. They had to. They again called for all the bills, all the reimbursements and everything, and prepared the fresh sheet. And now the fees that should have been paid in the previous years was now being paid, and it hits the account this year. So again, we know that, yeah, we have to treat that fees accordingly in accounts as well, right? But we will get it done. We'll reason it out. No problem with that. Right? So do you understand basically what is the reason behind clause 8? Right? So these were basically not very professional reasons, right? But we have very specific 4 professional reasons that is listed by the institute. There are these 4 reasons are professional reasons for which this clause is actually brought into place. Right? So stay tuned. In our next lecture, we'll be discussing in detail those 4 professional reasons for this clause. Right? So I'll be back with that description in the next lecture. Until then, it is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you.